Hi, my name is Ruth, and this is my story. I was born in Guyana, Georgetown. I am one of 5 siblings, and growing up in Guyana, all I saw as a child growing up was my father being abusive to my mother. My earliest memories as a child was my father chasing my mother with a machete, and she'd be running for her life to the neighbor's house. I remember my dad always jumping in front of my mother to hit her, always starting a fight. And I remember times when my mother and I locked ourselves in the bathroom and my dad would start a fire outside just to get us out. I remember when I was a teenager in high school, my school got a report of abuse and I was taken away to an orphanage, and I lived there for over a year. My very first day at the orphanage was scary. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know if anyone would come for me. I was just, one night they came, took me out of my home and took me to this orphanage. Didn't know anything that was going to happen to me next or where I was going to be. I remember my mother searching out and coming to find me, taking a 2.5-hour ride on the train to come and see me. And she packed with her the essentials. She packed with her my clothes, underwears, and things like that. But on top of everything, she packed a Bible for me. I made a promise with her that I was going to come and see her Valentine's Day, which was just 2 days away. And I told her I was going to come to Queens and that I would call her and we'd have lunch and we'd talk. So that day I took the long train ride. I went up to Queens and I went to see her. I called and I waited and she never answered. I walked over to our home and I walked into our house, and to my surprise, I wasn't supposed to be there, but to my surprise, when I walked in, the door was open and my father was laying on the steps, and I didn't understand. I rushed into the main door where I saw my mother laying by the bathroom and she was bleeding. I walked over to her body and lifeless, there was no pulse. Called 911. When the ambulance came, they took her and she was pronounced dead. Been severely beaten and stabbed to death. My father was arrested for her murder, but never convicted of it. I couldn't understand this, and I battled with my faith, I battled with God. I didn't understand why this could happen to her. I rebelled against God. I did everything I wasn't supposed to be doing. I dropped out of high school. I got pregnant as a teenager. I didn't know where the next steps were for me. It wasn't until I was an adult and I was still going to church, but I was going to church because there was always a tug in my heart, because I had to be here. I just searching for an answer, searching for God to tell me what happened, why this happened. Through it all, my husband now was my only support then. He was the friend that came to see me, came to visit me all the time. And 6 months after our daughter was born, he supported me while I went back to school. I worked 2 jobs so that I can go back to school full time and get my master's degree. A few years later, I got a job on Wall Street at Goldman Sachs, and I worked there for over 19 years. At that point, I felt like I had everything. I had the daughter, the husband, the car, the great job. I had a home, and I felt everything was better. I was pregnant with my second child, and at that point I was 7.5 months pregnant with my second child, and my first, Amanda, was diagnosed with cancer, which resulted in 5 years of chemo, many surgeries, and it took me to a place every night where I'd be at her bedside while she's having her chemo in the hospital. The thought of losing someone else who was just as important to me was unbearable. So I did the thing that I knew my mother would do, get on my knees and pray. After 5 years of cancer treatment and chemo, she was much better. We continued to go to church, and at that point I was going to a church that it was in this neighborhood, but I was always going because I knew there was always a search for me to find the answer for my mother's loss, and God was always calling me back in some way. We were looking for a summer school program for Kevin, and we couldn't find anything in our neighborhood. I I had even camped out on the street trying to find a summer program, and there was no space open. Until one day I got a flyer on our car that said there's this Hope NYC in the neighborhood who had just moved in, and they had a free summer program. We sent Kevin there, and he fell in love with everyone there. And he kept telling me, Mom, this is a great church. This is a great church. We have to go. I came here at Hope NYC, broken, bitter, hurt. Came in with so many baggages on my shoulders, carrying the weight, not having a home for so many years, searching for a home, that when I came to Hope NYC, I found home. I took the bitterness, he took the anger, he took the pain, he took the emotional scars. He took all of that away, and today I'm able to work at Hope NYC full-time. And every day I get the opportunity to demonstrate his love. I get the opportunity to work for him. There's no better job in the world than to work for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.